Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Pathfinder guide we have the Inquisitor, with a very fun and very fitting Aeon build too. While you could potentially go with Trickster, I do think Aeon is a lot more thematic for this build. Plus, through the aid of the Aeon Mythic Path, we get extremely powerful tools such as Aeon Bane, which stacks in uses and power with your own Inquisitor Bane, to easily dispel even the toughest of bosses of all of their nasty pre-buffs, even on unfair, and of course gazes such as attack and attacks of opportunity, both of which will increase your attack rolls and damage by massive amounts, party-wide by the way. And of course, as an Inquisitor you have other very nice powers too. A decent amount of attacks per round with super high damage, high critical range and damage too. A pet which is always amazing, especially for an Aeon who can set all of your pet's stats to their highest score. Endgame only, but still pretty fun. Lots and lots of unique class abilities such as Turn Gaze, and because of Sanctified Slayer, even sneak attack progression, and extra bonus feats too. So without further ado, let's get into our Inquisitor build. Alright, so for my previous best archetype guides, I already covered the best ones for Inquisitor overall, so I'll keep it simple. This time, I want to go with the Sanctified Slayer. Sanctified Slayer loses Judgment, but it gains sneak attack progression, last but not least also the full scaling study target feature. While it is true that losing Judgment in a game like Wrath, where you can easily make it infinite uses through the Everlasting Judgment mythic ability, is a bit of a bummer, I think Sanctified Slayer is the archetype that overcomes that, all thanks to the study target feature at full power. When it comes to judgments, you would mostly be picking Destruction for attack bonus and also Justice for damage, which study target already gives you anyways, and pretty close to the max you can get too from these judgments. So overall, I think the Sanctified Slayer makes up for that. Plus, you know, sneak attack progression is always amazing, bonus feats are always great to have, and you actually keep everything else besides judgment, so Bane and Greater Bane, Stern Gazed, Cunning Initiative, all the teamwork feats, solo tactics, even Stalwart, and of course, the Domain for easy access to pets, and some other neat abilities through Impossible Domain later on. For race, as usual I like humans, I just prefer the early game boost to power they get, because to me, the more powerful you can get early on the better. For background, I'd go with Regional, and then Warrior of the Lenorm Kings for Great Axe proficiency. After all, the Gravesinger Great Axe is pretty much the best weapon in the game, I'm afraid. And Inquisitors by default have pretty poor weapon proficiencies, only simple, and also the weapon of their deity. Notice that simple weapon proficiency still lets them equip long spears, which are rich weapons, so great for the early levels. For ability points, I'd rather focus on strength. Inquisitors do get up to level 6 spellcasting, but honestly, their spells are mostly for buffs, not really DC, so we don't have to increase wisdom very high. 14 is more than enough, the rest we can get through headbands or other gear. Then 12 dexterity, 14 constitution as usual, and I'd honestly dump charisma, you don't really need it. Just to get 13 dexterity so we can later qualify for the precise strike teamwork feat, as we can get it for free anyways. But since we are only picking it somewhat later, you can also just use a belt that increases dexterity when picking the feat if you prefer. Ideally you want to go with athletics, because of our high strength. Use Magic Device is great for some extra spellcasting, there are a lot of powerful spells for self-buffs you can get through this. Our penalty to charisma doesn't really matter, it's very easy to increase this through gear and spell buffs. Perception is also great for Inquisitors because of their special Stern Gaze ability. Persuasion is something that can be chosen as well despite low charisma. Inquisitors have, once again, their Stern Gaze ability that enhances only the Intimidate checks when it comes to Persuasion. Lastly, you can pick anything else you want. I just go for Mobility. For your level 1 feats, at first the usual package for two-handed builds. So power attack, and then cleave. As usual, cleave lets your character potentially get 2 attacks just at level 1, which is huge. And as far as Inquisitors, you only get your true second attack at level 8, which is way later. As far as deity, while we can pick as many domains as we want later on through Impossible Domain in Mythic Progression, I'd rather start with Erastral, just so we can already pick Animal Domain. Animal will grant us a pet as early as level 4, and as you know, pets are OP. As far as your spells, Inquisitor is actually a spontaneous caster just like Oracle, so you don't have to prepare spells. Please remember that I already have a guide with all of the best divine spells in the game you can check, links to the side here or in the pinned comment, so I'll keep it simple for now. For the first level, Bless and Cure Light Wounds. As far as alignment, be sure to pick Lawful Good or Lawful Neutral, as we are going Aeon. For level 2, go with Shield of Faith, for a nice defensive buff. For level 3, pick Cleaving Finish. As always, this can let your character get potentially 3 attacks just at the early levels, as whenever you kill an enemy, you'll get a free attack against a nearby one. Now for your first teamwork feat, go with Shake It Off. As soon as level 3 Inquisitors will also get the Solo Tactics ability. What this means is, even if your party members that are nearby don't have Shake It Off, because of Solo Tactics they will be treated as if they did, for the purposes of granting you bonuses. So by just having this and being close to allies, which you will be since we are a melee build, you'll get a +4 bonus to saving throws, which is amazing, especially for the early game. For another spell, go with True Strike. At level 4, increase Strength, which is also what you should increase on all of the other levels, especially since your Aeon mythic abilities, the DC for them scales based on whatever ability score you have that is the highest. Because we have Animal Domain, we also get a pet at level 4. Ideally you want the dog or the wolf to sniff out lawbreakers as an Aeon, but you can also pick some of the other nice pets that trip for free, such as the boar or the triceratops. For level 2 spells, Lesser Restoration is always great for spontaneous casters, and besides that, Protection from Alignment Communal. At level 5, be sure to pick Boon Companion, because by default the pet granted from Animal Domain scales at your level -3. With this we can have it fully scale to our levels. You can then pick any level 2 spell here. Might as well go with Cure Moderate Wounds for more healing early game. For your level 16 work feat, as always Outflank. This feat is truly amazing. Any level 2 spell, like Find Traps for example, since we do have High Perception as an Inquisitor. At level 7, go for Accomplished Sneak Attacker to increase our sneak dice by an extra 1d6. As an Inquisitor we don't have full progression unlike a Rogue. Then pick Divine Favor here, if only because this is starting to scale quite nicely now. For your first level 3 spells, Greater Magic Weapon is always great, because it stacks with whatever enhancement your weapon already has, to a maximum of +5, and has amazing duration at 1 hour of real time per level. Heroism is great, but I'd much rather leave this to other characters like a SKALD or Bard, who by this point can already cast Good Hope, a party-wide version of it. You can go with Magical Vestment, but since I often have my pets tank and this doesn't work on them anymore, unless I have pet armor, which isn't that needed, I'd rather pick something like Prayer instead. At level 8, we get our first player talent. Sadly, the other ones are only acquired way later, from 16 onwards. Go for Combat Streak and Weapon Focus, then Great Axe. For another level 3 spell, you might as well pick Remove Curse here, great for spontaneous casters too. For level 9, we'll be picking the newly added, well, more like stealthily added, because it wasn't on the patch notes, as I've just explained in my previous video about patch 2.05, Lunge. This can grant you more reach and basically for free. It has a penalty to armor class, but you know who cares. If you have reach you aren't getting attacked anyways. Then for a bonus teamwork feat, I'd go for Precise Strike. While it is true that the extra damage from this is added separately to your character, so enemies like demons can easily absorb it through their damage reduction, because at this point we are close to level 10, which means chapter 3, and at chapter 3 you can easily get the Bane of Spirit Ring that lets you convert all of your damage, including this extra d6 here, into irresistible force. Any other spell here, you can actually go for the unique Inquisitor spell Litany of Eloquence, because it's always cast as a swift action, so you can still attack in the same round, and amusingly enough, it does not have a save at all. The only downside is it has to bypass the enemy spell resistance. What you can do is, if you want to use it as early as this level, delay Precise Strike for level 12, and then pick Allied Spellcaster right here. Go for any other level 2 spell here, might as well go for a line weapon, Aid I would rather leave for a Cleric or Oracle. For your first level 4 spells, we do have a lot of useful ones here. As usual for Divine Casters, this is going to depend on how many other Divine Casters you have. I would personally still go with an Oracle and a Cleric, or at the very least, one of them. And I'd much rather have them go for Crusader's Edge. The same for Protection from Energy Communal. I'd rather pick Restoration because it's always great for spontaneous casters. And also Greater Invisibility. For level 11, at last, Improved Critical and Great Axe. Any level 1 spell here, and then you might as well go for Death Ward. It is situational, but you know, we are a spontaneous caster, so we'll always have it on demand. But you can also go for Freedom of Movement instead, which has much higher duration, even instead of Greater Invisibility if you prefer, or Restoration. For a level 12 bonus Teamwork feat, Allied Spellcaster if you didn't pick it before, or Precise Strike. And then Divine Power. This only starts becoming better than Divine Favor at around this level. For a level 13 feat, well, we have to get started on our Shattered Defenses package, so Dazzling Display it is. Any other level 3 spell here might as well go for Cure Serious Wounds. I suppose if you had tank characters with heavy armor, then you also could pick Magical Vestment. For your first level 5 spells, honestly there aren't that many useful ones, at least not for an Inquisitor. As always, there's stuff here I'd much rather leave for Clerics or Oracles, like Spell Resistance. I'd rather go for a Resounding Blow, since this gives you extra damage on hit, 1d6 points of sonic damage, which is often not that resisted by enemies. It's just that the other spells at this point aren't that useful. They are mostly DC based, which is not our character style. Any level 2 spell here, and then what you didn't pick before, in my case, Spell Resistance. For level 15, as usual Shattered Defenses, just in time for all of my builds. The other teamwork feats you get don't matter that much, you might as well pick back to back, if only because this grants you extra armor class. Not needed because you have reach and also a pet, but you know, it's for free, so why not? Any other level 5 spell here? You can go for Righteous Might, but I'd rather have Enlarged Person or Legendary Proportions. Even Frightful Aspects too, which you can easily get from scrolls. For level 16, since we cannot pick Advanced Slayer talents as a Sanctified Slayer, I'd rather go for more bonus feats, so Combat Streak, and then Combat Reflexes. The main reason I delayed this for now is because we have other ways of getting extra attacks of opportunity. We have 1 by default, plus 2 from the ever-ready Mythic ability which we get early, and then an extra 1 from the Clemency of Shadows Crusade Relic Ring. Any other level 4 spell here, might as well go for Freedom of Movement, or Burst of Glory. And then as far as your level 6 spells, unfortunately, it's mostly about heal. And then Inspiring Recovery can help too, because it's a way of bringing back characters from death without having to rely on Raise Dead or Resurrection spells or scrolls, which are pretty expensive. For a level 17 feat, Improved Initiative. Inquisitors already get boosts to their initiative from the Cunning Initiative feature, which is why I don't pick this early. We have a bonus feat from Sanctified Slayer, and I would go for Blind Fight. As always, because late game we have enemies with concealment sources not bypassed by the True Seeing buff. And honestly, any level 6 spell too. The spell Magic Greater is useless for an Aeon because we are already one of the ultimate if not the best dispeller in the game. We can dispel the enemies on every single attack we have for free. And the rest is just poor overall. Might as well pick True Seeing, you know. Now from level 18 onwards is when I would consider multiclassing or Sanctified Slayer. The reality is at this point we already have pretty much everything we could want out of it. All the extra feats, almost all of the sneak attack, we can get the rest through some multiclasses. And as far as study target, we'll miss the last +1, which only comes at level 20, but what we get from the multiclassing will make up for that. Even level 6 spells too, we already have them. What I would pick now, well, first the classic Ranger and Demon Slayer, for the nice +2 to attack and damage rolls against all demons. For level 19, the usual Alchemist and Vivisectionist. This way we get the Mutagen for +4 to strength, and also the last sneak attack dice which we would have missed by not keeping to pure Sanctified Slayer. For another feat, you can truly pick anything you want. At this point, we already have the best ones. There's always Toughness for more hit points. When it comes to meta magic, feats Heighten for spellbook flexibility and more castings of certain spells, and also Selective for the ultimate Aeon Area of Effect spell, so it won't hit your party members. Improved Blind Fight too, and also Destructive Dispel or Dispel Synergy if you have DC casters, as Aeons are all about dispelling with ease. For your Vivisection spells, honestly you're just going to be using True Strike. Now for level 20, I would just keep 2 Vivisectionists too. First for the Discovery, and also to increase the duration of a mutagen by double, so 20 minutes instead of 10. 10 is kinda short, with 20 you can certainly complete any dungeon, even if you only get it super late. Problem is, I'm not a fan of delaying my main class abilities. And as far as the Discovery, certainly Pharaoh Mutagen for the extra bite attack. Alright, now let's cover Mythic Progression for our Inquisitor Aeon. As always for your first ascension, close to the Abyss is overall the best. For most melee characters, the extra gore attack pretty much means an extra attack per round, and that's always a nice boost to have. For your first mythic ability, as a mounted character, and at this point, you are pretty close to level 7, which is when you get to ride your pet without size enhancing or reducing spells, Leading Strike is always a great mythic ability to have, so that you attack and mark the enemy, then your pet attacks after that, unleashes the mark for extra damage, and so on. On the other hand, you can also already get started into domains. Inquisitors can pick domains, and because of Impossible Domain we can pick anything we want, no matter our initial deity and alignment choice. The Divine Fortune ability works pretty much the same way as Fortune Hacks. It's actually better because whenever you make any d20 roll, so long as this is under duration, you get to roll twice and pick the best result. The main difference between this and Fortune Hacks is Divine Fortune doesn't have a limit. Fortune Hacks can only be applied once per character per rest. The duration is also much higher, it's half your class levels. If you were on Unfair, I'd pick Luck Domain right now. Otherwise, for hard and below, Leading Strike, we can pick Luck Domain later. For Mythic Rank 2, the usual Mythic Power Attack, especially because we are a two-handed character with great access, and the extra damage boost is huge. For Mythic 3, Ever Ready. Aeons are actually amazing at attacks of opportunity, and we all know how good they are, because they have an Enforcing Gaze that also empowers your whole party's attacks of opportunity by the same amount as Ever Ready. Speaking about gazes, please remember that I already have a complete Aeon guide where I explain each one of these in depth. But for now, go with attack, as attack will help your allies always. Attacks of opportunity is limited, of course. For Mythic Rank 4, as usual, Mythic Improve at Critical and Great Axe. So our Gravesinger Great Axe will have ×4 critical damage, ×5 with a SKALD ally. And then pick the Attacks of Opportunity Gaze here. However, Aeons can only apply 2 gazes starting from Mythic 6. So while you can pick more gazes from now onwards, you'll mostly just be using Enforcing Gaze and attack until Mythic 6. Now for Mythic Rank 5, this is when I would go for Impossible Domain and Luck. At this point, your character should already be around level 14 or so that's 7 rounds of duration, which is more than enough. Then you can pick any other gaze here. The only other important gaze will only be picking at Mythic 8. You might as well go with Power of Law for now. For Mythic Rank 6, extra Mythic ability, and well, if you have a SKALD, certainly Mythic Charge, because they can provide pounce to you. So you get to charge and full attack at the same round, which is very powerful, for loads of extra damage. Otherwise, you can already pick Mythical Beast here to empower your pet. Even another Impossible Domain. I'd rather go for Mythic Charge for now, as I do always have SKALDs. You can truly pick any gaze until you reach Mythic 8. You'll just be using attack and attacks of opportunity anyways. Might as well like big damage. For Mythic level 7, Mythical Beast, any other gaze. And for Mythic level 8, Mythic Improve at Initiative. It is best for an Aeon to act before the enemy can react, because this way, through the use of your Aeon Bane ability, you can easily dispel them. Now, at Mythic 8 you can finally pick the Temporal Jump Aeon Gaze. It can be pretty powerful when combined with attack and attacks of opportunity gazes, but you can only have 3 gazes at the same time at Mythic 10. Then at Mythic level 9, as usual, you can pick Last Stand, just to be safe, or Impossible Domain and another domain of choice. As for Mythic Rank 10, you can really go any way you want here. We already have the best Mythic Feats, I suppose you can pick something like Mythic Sneak Attacker, which doesn't help that much in the long run. And of course, use it for an extra Mythic ability like another domain power. Alright, now let us cover gear for our Inquisitor. The amulet as usual, Velex's Magnifying Amulet is the best for any main character. Before that, you can go with amulets that increase initiative, like Wind Breath. For the armor slot, armor doesn't really matter for us, we have reach, we have a pet to ride, and quite a powerful one at that. Ideally go with the Chainmail of Camaraderie for the passive effect, which highly increases your damage when flanking enemies by a +4. The robe or clothing slot doesn't really matter for you, I just have the Happy Traveler shirt here, but you can go with anything you want, including the Cloth of Heavy Fortification for 75% critical hit and sneak attack immunity. For the belt slot, at first belts that increase strength, later strength and constitution, and ultimately you can just go with Physical Perfection belt for +6 to all your stats. For the glove slot, Fencer's Gift can add a decent boost to damage. Early game you can go with the Dashing Cavalier's gloves. For the boot slot, I prefer to go with the boots of Stampede as I do have a SKALD, and we are focused on athletics. You can add around 20 extra damage with this at max level whenever you charge at the enemy. There's always Ronak Sacrifice too, but I'd rather save them for a dexterity based character. For the Helm slot, at the start you can go with Headbands of Wisdom, ultimately the Hat of the Bitter End, which has a super powerful stacking, bonus to attack roll effect whenever you kill an enemy. At the same DLC, the Treasure of the Midnight Isles, you can quickly get the Broken Trickster Glasses, which highly increase both your Wisdom and Charisma, so you won't have to go with a Headband of Wisdom later on. Plus, the damage reduction properties are very good in case your Aeon gets hit. For the Cloak slot, at first Cloaks of Resistance, but the best one is definitely the Mythic version of the Aeon Cloak, which is also by far the best of all of the Mythic Cloaks in the game. For the Rings slots, first the Ring of Imminent Demise for the extra bonus to attack and damage, since we are two-handing, and I also enjoy the Bane of Spirit Ring as always for the super overpowered effect as a free action of converting all of your damage into irresistible force. As usual, you can just equip this on another character too, since anyone can use this on any party member. For the bracers, I just settle for the braces of Abrupt Onslaught for extra sneak attack damage, since as a Sanctified Slayer, we do have sneak attack. Alright, now let us cover weapons and quick slots. Well, for the beginning of the game, you can already use Great Access, although of course you won't have access to the Gravesinger, in which case, be sure to have a party member like Amelia or Nanyo cast the Enlarged Person spell on your Aeon, so you get Reach. You can also go with Long Spears early on, as they do already have the Reach property, which becomes even bigger whenever you go with Enlarged Person. Ultimately, of course, you want to go for the Gravesinger Great Axe, but you can only get it starting from chapter 3. It is as usual the weapon with the highest critical range, together with the highest critical damage possible, all in a neat little package. Now, as far as quick slots, the Dragon Familiar Jarsig Axe as usual for extra damage, especially when combined with the Bane of Spirit Ring, so it will fully hit any enemy in the game. Lesser Extend and also Extend Metamagic Rods for some of the more useful Inquisitor buffs up to level 6, and also the unique Aeon spells. For example, you can even extend Edict of Impenetrable Fortress, a greater Quicken Metamagic Rod for the same purpose. Although in the case of Aeon, some of your most powerful mythic spells, the Edicts, well, they are already cast as swift actions anyways, so Quicken won't really do much. But you can still quicken stuff such as Inspiring, Recovery, or Heal. The Signet of House Vespertilio as usual if you want to get a very big boost to one of your skills. And of course, since we have decent Use Magic Device, the most useful spell scrolls of other classes, especially Transformation, to set your base attack bonus to high for an extra attack and even more AB. Frightful Aspect can help as well, and of course, spells that you wouldn't have access to even though they are divine, such as Mass Heal. Even other useful stuff like Cemento. Remember, with the latest DLC, the Treasure of the Midnight Isles, you'll get a vendor during chapter 3 that sells 99 stacks of pretty much the best scrolls in the game, even early. And money isn't really an issue eventually. Well, alright friends, so this was it from my Inquisitor Aeon guide. Sadly, I don't have the Golden Toad here, as Aeons do get a special interaction with Jubilost, so you can't get the item if you choose that. Anyways, if you found this guide useful, please remember to like, subscribe, and even consider becoming a channel member. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.